Hi, welcome back to the Mina Does Art Stuff YouTube channel. My name is Mina and on this channel we do art stuff. So I just wanted to insert this footage ahead of the video you're about to see. I filmed the video that's coming just over a year ago now. So right now it is the 6th of November 2022 and the rest of this footage was filmed around the 22nd, 23rd of October 2021. It was filmed before I found out I was pregnant. Literally, I'm pretty sure I found out I was pregnant about 3 or 4 days after I filmed this video. So it's not something I would have done had I known I was pregnant. Thankfully, no issues as a result of it, but just to be safe, I wouldn't recommend making paints or dealing with powdered pigments if you're pregnant, just in case. I don't actually know what the side effects could be, but I can't imagine they'd be particularly great. Anyway, over a year ago now, and like I said, if you've been following for a while you might remember this, I got a Jackson's order with and some stuff from Amazon in order to make my own handmade paints. I was really excited about it, and like I said, I got round to finally doing it last year in October, and I spent a whole day. I managed to have a whole day all to myself. My daughter was otherwise being taken care of by my parents. My husband was away, and as far as I knew, I wasn't pregnant, so I had the house to myself and I was able to really dig deep and get into it and have fun with it, and I created a lot of paint that day. Like I said, I think I actually did it over 2 days, but either way, I spent a lot of time. I made a lot of paint, and I did film some of it and I put it together into a video, which is the video you're about to see. So this is part 1. And I just want you to bear in mind that this video was filmed over a year ago, so if I reference a recent haul, it's a recent haul relative to when I originally filmed the video, not now. And yeah, and then once you've finished watching part 1, make sure to come back for part 2, which I'll be filming now, where I'll be going over and showing you the paints in their finished state and some paintings I've done with them, and then we'll do I did a light fastness test as well on my paint, so I wanted to share that with you, and then yeah, we'll do a little painting as well to round out this video, the second video. So make sure you stay and watch this video, and then I will see you in the next one. Today, love that sound, sorry if that's annoying anybody, we are going to be making some handmade watercolors. So I have a selection of pigments here. So we have actually, before we get into that, back in a haul earlier this year, I think it was like in July, I bought a bunch of pigments and supplies to do my own handmade watercolors, and so many of you requested that I share the process. I did do an initial batch of paints, which I'll show you here really quickly, and they turned out pretty good. I definitely learnt some lessons from that first round. I learned that the earth colours dry down quite hard, so I probably need to add more binder, maybe a little bit more glycerin to help with the re-wetting. They re-wet fine, but they look really dry in the pans. Just give you an idea, like that one's dried, like it looks really dry in the pan compared to this one. See, that one has quite a shine to it, and this one is like really matte and really dry. So I kind of want them to be not quite so dry as that. So I'm probably going to add a bit more binder and a bit more glycerin to the earth colours. I also played around with mixing some of the colours as I was making them as well, and made a shade of green that I really liked. Anyway, so it's now October, so this was back in July when I did this, so it's just taken me a bit of time to get back to it again, mainly because, like I said, life has kind of gotten in the way. There's been lots going on with our home life, and I know I keep yammering on about this. I'm not going to talk too much about that now, but yeah, anyway, back at it now. I actually realised I'm going to take my watch off because I don't want to get paint and stuff on it, and yeah, so the pigments I have in front of me now, I don't know if I'm going to get to doing all of these today or if I'm going to just do a few, or how many I'll actually be able to like record. I might just film the process for a couple of the colours and then just show you what all the ones that I made at the end and how they turned out with some painting demos and stuff. And speaking of painting demos, I actually did record a little snippet of me painting out the colours I've already made, so the ones that are in this palette, and doing some colour mixing. So I'm going to insert that footage here for you guys. Okay, so here I am swatching. This first one is Hansa Yellow Medium, and then I go in and I'm swatching, this is Raw Sienna Monte Amiata, I believe that's how you pronounce it, and then it's Venetian Red. I absolutely love this Venetian Red, it's so soft and beautiful. And then we've got Italian Burnt Sienna, and then this green is a mix between Prussian Blue, which I'm swatching now, and the Raw Sienna. And then now I'm just mixing up some greens. I think this is that was Prussian Blue with a little bit of the Hansa Yellow, then I added more Hansa Yellow to make it a lighter green, and now I'm mixing some of the pre-mixed green with a bit more of the Raw Sienna, and then I'm mixing up some Venetian Red with some Hansa Yellow. Honestly, when you get the ratio just right, like this swatch just here, this looks like a really good like dupe for like a Quin Gold. Like it's really beautiful and luminous. And then I go ahead and I'm trying to mix up some neutrals between Prussian Blue and the Burnt Sienna to see what I can get. So this is more a brown neutral with more of the Burnt Sienna, then with a bit more of the blue. It's a bit more of a dark green neutral. It's almost like a Perylene green sort of shade. And then I think I threw in a bit of Venetian Red to one of the greens I'd already mixed to get a bit more of an olive colour. And then over here in the corner I'm testing out the dispersion, because I haven't added anything other than gum arabic, honey, glycerin and a couple of drops of clove oil to the binder. So there's nothing in there to really make it flow like synthetic oxgall or actual oxgall. Anyway, so that's the palette. Those are the 6 colours I did initially, and now we'll go back to present day me. So actually, yeah, I really enjoyed how the colours have turned out of the ones I already made. In another recent haul, my birthday haul, I think, from Jackson's, which I actually think is the last haul I did on the channel before filming this video, and so I purchased a few more colours that I wanted to get that at the time when I did my first order either weren't available or I wasn't sure about getting, because I didn't want to get too many colours in the first go, just in case I didn't enjoy the process. So the colours that I've picked out to potentially work on today is Prussian Blue, Hansa Yellow Medium. Now this one is a really hard one to mull. It's I think the word is hydrophobic, so it doesn't like to mix in with the liquids. So this one took the longest out of all the ones I did last time to actually mix in. Then we've got Venetian Red, which is one of the colours I did last time as well, and I really like how soft this colour is, so I want to do more of that to top up my pans. Oh, Nickel Laser Yellow. This is one of my favourite shades of yellow, and I didn't do this one last time, but I really want to give it a go. I'm not sure how hard this one is to mull, but I'm excited to try it out. Chromium Green Oxide. This is the only naturally green pigment that I've got, so I wanted to try that out. Cobalt Turquoise. Now this is the greener version of Cobalt Turquoise. This isn't the teal version, this is the darker version, and I really like this one. It pairs really beautifully with purples and paintings. It's just such a lovely colour pairing. Yes, I'm excited to try that one. Ultramarine Blue, and then Cobalt Cerulean Blue. I think that's what this is, or this is basically the same pigment as like chromium, cerulean chromium, or yeah, which I really like as well. Or I think White Nights calls this colour Cobalt Azure Blue, which is a beautiful shade. Potter's Pink, it's another lovely one I want to try. Titanium Gold Ochre, like an earth yellow. Terra Pazuli, another earth colour, it's PR102. And Permanent Red, PR170. PR170 is a shade I quite like as well, so, or it's a pigment I quite enjoy as well. So we have 12 different colours here. I highly doubt I'm going to get through all of these today, but we will see how far we get. The other thing I wanted to mention is obviously I have this glass plate here, I picked this up on Amazon as just a glass cutting board. You just want something, I mean, this is fairly smooth. Like, they do suggest you have like a slight texture on it or something, so you could rough it up with some sandpaper. I just haven't gotten around to doing that yet. And it is clean. If it looks a little bit, it's got some marks on it, that's on the underside. The surface is clean. I did clean it. Under here I have a couple of sheets of old watercolor paper where the sizing is expired, which can happen with watercolor paper apparently. And it's sat on top of my Alex drawers. So I have a set of Alex drawers where I, you can't see it on the camera, where I store all my paints and other supplies and stuff as well. But so I have this set up next to my desk. My desk is over on the side there, and so that's where my window is, as you can see the lights coming in from the side. And I figured this was the best setup rather than doing it on my desk, because my desk has so many things on it right now. And this way I can use my desk to hold things on the side while I'm actually working. So I'm just going to go through the tools that I'm going to be using today. This might end up being like a 2 or 3 part video depending how long this all is in the end. I've got a couple of just cleaning cloths. I'll probably have one be damp so I can clean up any spills or anything I need to as we go, and I'll keep one dry just in case. So that's over to the side. I have my binder, which I made back in July. The date's on there. So this binder, I followed a recipe by Arlisha. She's Arlabean here on YouTube. I will link her channel and specifically her handmade watercolor playlist. I learned a lot about how to do this from watching her videos, and she also, like I said, she's posted a recipe video on how she makes her binder. So I pretty much followed that recipe, and she had a really good tip of dating it, because this binder is good in the fridge for 6 months. So mine's been in the fridge since the 17th of July, so I need to crack on with using it. So that's the binder. These are some of the other tools that I have. So I have a glass muller. I did get mine on AliExpress. It's not absolutely perfect, but it works. It does the job, and it's a good size. It's not too small. That was the other thing. The ones that I'd seen that were relatively affordable were quite tiny, and I knew I'd get annoyed by that quite quickly. I have a selection of palette knives to use for like the initial mixing and then pouring into pans. A couple of brushes for swatching, pipettes, permanent marker to label pans, and a couple of scoopy scoops for binder and pigment. So those are all the tools I'll be using. Yeah. Those out the way there. I also have a separate bottle of vegetable glycerin, which I already have in my binder, but like I mentioned, I think for some of the colours or the pigments that I know might be harder to re-wet, I might add a couple of extra drops of glycerin to those mixes. I have a little jar of water off to the side, which I will replace with clean water for swatching out the colours. I have, where did I put it? It was literally just, there we go. I have a spray bottle. This is filled with distilled water. I just got this off Amazon. So you want to use distilled water for making your binder, and also like when you're actually making the paints, if you need to add more water because it's drying out on the mixing plate or something. You want to use distilled water because it won't have any minerals or bacteria in it which could cause mold. So yeah, when you're actually making the watercolors, it's kind of important. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily essential if you're just doing it for yourself, but if you want your watercolors to last and potentially not grow mold on them, then you'll want to make sure you use distilled water. So I have distilled water in here if I need to like spray down whilst I'm mulling. I have a mask to put on whilst I'm actually mixing in the pigments to the into the binder. Once the pigments, the dry powder has been mixed in, then I don't have to wear it because it won't potentially get airborne. I have a selection of half and full pans here to use to put the paints in once they're made. Plus, I was thinking, I've got some of these Arteza watercolor postcards, which I will be honest, not a fan of the paper. even though it's supposedly 100% cotton, it just doesn't, it's more like a hot press than cold press, which is what they advertise it as, and I'm just not a fan of the texture. So what I was thinking of doing was creating little dot cards of all the colours that I make today, and potentially selling them for anyone who's interested. It won't be that expensive. They're quite, it'll be quite easy to post as like a letter, so it wouldn't cost too much at all. And yeah, so if anyone's interested and wants to just have a little play around with some handmade watercolours, I might do that. And then I also have a watercolour sketchbook that I can swatch out the colours in as we go to test and see how they are turning out, and make notes of the recipes that I'm using. Okay, so that's everything. I think I'm now going to switch to time-lapse / voiceover mode for like explaining what I'm doing as I'm doing it, so I can just crack on, and that way I can speed up the footage a bit so it won't take too long to get through everything, hopefully.
Okay, back to voiceover. So what you can see me doing here is I'm sort of dishing out the pigment, and I have two different spoons that I use. I use one for pigment and one for binder, that way I don't have to keep like washing in between, going back, and if I need to add more binder or more pigment during the mixing process, then I have separate measuring spoons for each one. And 3 scoops of the smaller one is the same as 1 scoop of the larger one, so I kind of do 3 scoops of powder of the small one and then 1 big scoop of the larger scoop for binder, and so that's like a 1-to-1 ratio by volume. And this first one that I did was Venetian red, and you saw I mixed it in first with the palette knives, and now I am mulling it around on the glass slab with the muller. Sorry, it was out of focus there a little bit. I have sped this up quite fast just because otherwise we're going to be sat here for ages. We're going to look at 3 different colours in this particular video. This is part 1. There will be a part 2 where I come back and show you all the different colours that I made. I did actually end up making a lot of colours on this particular day. Just because I had the house to myself. My little one is away with the grandparents and my husband's away for work, so I pretty much just sat and made paint all day on this particular day, which was actually very nice. And yeah, so there I was just sort of bringing everything to the middle, and now I'm just testing the paint on my watercolor sketchbook. This is a Caddy Papers sketchbook. So the purpose of doing that, and here I'm just actually, sorry, I'm just doubling my batch, so I'm adding another 3 scoops of the dry powder and another 1 scoop of the larger scoop of the binder. So this is why I don't use 1 scoop for both, because then I'd be constantly washing it and then mixing that powder back in before mulling again. So the purpose of swatching as you're going along with paint making is to test to see if the paint is ready, to see if it's smooth, to see if it's grainy still, if it still needs more mulling, if it needs more binder or more pigment. So the way you can tell is once the paint is dried, your swatch is dried, if you smudge it with your finger or like a white tissue, and pigment comes off, then that means it either needs to be mulled for longer or it might need more binder. And if it dries and the swatch looks a little bit shiny, then it probably needs more pigment for the amount of binder that you were using. So it's a good way of sort of like testing how you're doing. Now my first one wasn't actually too bad, but because I added more pigment and binder to the mix, I re-swatched it out, and I'm just giving it 1 more mull for good measure. The other tool that I used that I didn't mention at the beginning was my hairdryer. I have a hairdryer with a diffuser attachment, which I use frequently for drying my watercolors when I'm impatient, and I use that to dry the swatches, because otherwise I'd be sat there for ages waiting for my swatches to dry before deciding whether or not I could carry on, whether I'd done enough mulling or not. So I found that that was a pretty useful way of figuring that out. Okay, so I'm bringing everything back to the middle again, just kind of like scooping the paint in from the sides to the center and swiping one palette knife against the other to basically gather all the paint into the middle. A lot of what I learnt, pretty much all of what I've learnt from about how to make paints has come from watching YouTube videos, and mostly from watching Arlisha's YouTube videos. And like I said, I'll have her playlist and everything linked down below. It was definitely very helpful in my learning process of figuring out how this all works. And here, now I'm filling up my pans. So the full pans that I'm filling up are, I'm just topping up the pans I made last time. So I don't have the facility, I don't have the containers to be able to store wet paint to then be able to do future top-ups. So you will notice that I just fill the pans up all the way. I'm slightly impatient. I don't I'm not the most patient person, and because I'm not planning on this being like a big old like money venture type thing, I'm not planning on doing this on a large scale. It might be a few pans here and there, or like I said, these dot cards, some of which I make a complete mess of. So I didn't worry about it too much, but I think in the future when I finish up some pots of pigment, I will wash them out and keep them so I can then store wet paint in those pots to then do top-ups of different pans. So for the next colour, we're going to do it live, and so I'll stop the voiceover for now. Okay, back to voiceover for the rest of this one. So you saw there I just did the first swatch of the cobalt turquoise, and just from the feel of the paint and from how it went down, I could tell it needed more mulling. It felt a bit gritty. Although grittiness in handmade watercolours isn't abnormal, it's definitely something that I've found in handmade watercolours that I've bought, and it's just part of the nature of handmade watercolours. But it was different. It was kind that felt like it needed more mixing. Anyway, I wanted to go back to my point about being able to save paint for later. So what I was trying to get out there before I ran out of time was that with handmade watercolors, or just with watercolors in general, the best way, I guess best practice for filling pans is to fill them in layers. That way you get the most amount of pigment and minimum, you know, most even kind of shrinkage, and then relayering, and then because the watercolor paints will shrink as they dry because the water evaporates out of the wet paint. So it makes sense that it would do that. But like I was saying before, I don't have a great way of storing wet paint to keep it wet to then be able to do future layers without having to then sit down and remix more paint. And like I said, because this isn't my job, it's not something I was all too concerned about massively. I was doing this for fun, for experimentation, and just to make a few dot cards and fill up some pans, and clearly make a mess along the way. But I don't actually show it in the end, but during the course of the day, as I was making paints, I did end up with a few empty containers. So for the last couple of colours that I did make, I did actually wash out a couple of the containers and then managed to store some wet paint in those little jars, those plastic jars. So we'll see how well those last. And I'll see in a couple of days if I can do another layer in those pans once they've dried down a bit, and see how that goes. So this is just the part 1 video. Like I said, I'm just filling up the pans and did the dot cards and stuff like that. This is the part 1 video, so we're going to do one more colour, and then that's going to be it for this particular video. And then I'll come back probably, well, I'm actually doing the voiceover the day that I made all these paints, so I'm not sure how long it's going to take for them all to dry and everything. So I imagine in about a week from now, a week or 2 weeks from now, from when I'm actually recording this, I'll come back and do the part 2. So I'm not sure when this video is going to go out exactly either, so hopefully they'll come out fairly close together by the time these videos get published. So now we are working on chromium green oxide, or chromium oxide green. I can't remember which way around it is now. It's PG17, and this is well known for being quite an opaque watercolor, and it's one of the few naturally occurring green pigments. Now when this one came out of the jar, the pigment felt like it was coming out in little like balls almost, rather than individual grains of powder. But as you see here, as soon as I mixed the binder in with it, it just kind of just melted and dissolved into the binder really easily. I did add a couple of extra drops of glycerin to this mix just to see if that helps with rewettability or anything, like I said, because I know this is a fairly opaque colour. I have very limited experience with chromium oxide green as a paint, so we'll see how this goes. So yeah, here I am just mixing up this batch. This one again, I got very lucky. A lot of the batches that I did today were fairly quick. A lot of the paints that I did a fair few sort of like earth tones and stuff, and some of the other colours, like Prussian blue for example, is one that mixes into the binder so quickly. At least I found that to be the case. Whereas some of the other colours, like the Hansa Yellow Medium, and I kind of wish I had recorded that one, but I did that towards the end of the day and the lighting was terrible. That one takes a long time, a long time. And even then, like, I'm not entirely sure I mixed it enough. I still feel like I probably should have mixed it more, but I should have really started with that colour when I had the most energy in the morning rather than leaving it to the very last colour of the day. But it is a beautiful colour, so it's kind of one of those necessary evils, I guess. So here I'm swatching it out. Apologies, this isn't on camera. For this particular shot, I had the camera zoomed in a bit more than previously. Here we go, here's the zoomed out version. So I didn't realise the sketchbook wasn't in frame, but I swatched it out. It's all you missed, really. And yeah, it was a really fun process getting all of this done today. Like I said, I don't have the right setup to be able to do this as like a full-time thing or like super frequently, but you know, for something I could probably do something like this every couple of months or so. I'd need like a dedicated day to really make the most of it and get like the most like output from it, I guess. And so here I'm just sort of rubbing it on my fingers to test. So the first swatch that I did, there was some pigment that came off, but whereas the second swatch, once it had dried, it was fine. There was no pigment coming off. It looked like it had good coverage. It painted on quite nicely. It didn't feel too gritty, and yeah. So now I'm just pulling it all together. So then I'm going to start filling some pans and putting them on dot cards. So yeah, whilst we're here, I just wanted to say a massive thank you for checking out this video today. It's definitely a longer one than my usual on this channel. I don't envisage making too many long videos like this that aren't hauls, I guess. And yeah, I have links down below to where you can purchase some of the equipment that I used here today. I did buy all of my pigments from Jackson's Art here in the UK. They do ship internationally, and I have my affiliate code link below. And all that means is I get a small commission from Jackson's whenever you place an order using my link. I really appreciate it when you do use that link, because it does help support this channel, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. And also, if it's your first time ordering with Jackson's, when you use my link you get an additional 10% discount. And I have loved ordering from Jackson's. I hope to one day visit the Jackson's store in person. They have a couple of stores in London, and I just need to plan a day to be able to go to London and go into one of the actual stores in person, because that'd be awesome. I've only ever ordered from them online. But yeah, so please use those links if you are inclined to make any purchases from Jackson's, be it for pigment or anything else. And I just wanted to say massive thank you for watching this video. If you're watching here at the end, congratulations for getting this far. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, otherwise, and subscribe to the channel for part 2 and for more other videos. And I look forward to seeing you guys again very soon. Alright, take care. Bye bye.